Well, we prepared a lot of speakers and no charts and presentations before. For this 1 hour, speaking about yield management for German publishers and what has changed, what will be changing in the near future. So I'd like to ask you to introduce yourself, just company, your name, your company, and maybe in one sentence, what was your change for your company, referring to RTB, real-time advertising, data-driven buying, whatever, that you experienced last year. Martin, would you like to start?
My name is Martin Lüttgenau. I'm working for Tomorrow Focus Media, and we tested real-time bidding systems in 2011 in the fourth quarter, and we started business in 2012 and testing with retargeters, and so we make our first experiences, and we've seen that it's not really real-time bidding so far, it's real-time advertising, and we need much more demand that real-time bidding will start, and hopefully it starts in the next year, or this year, sorry.
I'm Thomas Vendrina. I'm working for Google. I was part of AdMeld when we got acquired by Google. AdMeld was a company that was based on real-time advertising or real-time bidding with the creation of private exchanges in 2011 already in the US, and we see this coming also in Germany in 2013.
Hi, my name is Stefan Zarnik. I'm here for Interactive Media, and our biggest move in the last year was the launch of our premium publisher platform, the core of our real-time advertising strategy. And yes, we launched it in November, last year's November, and that's the core of our real-time advertising strategy we are now running.
My name is Jay Stevens with the Rubicon project. In terms of the biggest changes we've seen in the market, or the markets, ever referring to one market is always a challenge, but I think the biggest changes we've seen in the last year have been the development of private marketplaces and premium private marketplaces all over the world, namely in France and the UK and Australia, but a big growth in the area of private marketplaces as publishers look to move to programmatic buying for greater efficiencies, and the same is true on the demand side as well. So I think today there are in Europe alone 36 publishers with over 200 private marketplaces, and we've seen an enormous growth. Today, about 8% of the overall revenue on the platform is coming from private marketplace deals. So CPMs, which are akin to what direct sold campaigns are generating, and not just open auction, RTB.
Hello, my name is Christian Griesbach. I'm here for Axel Springer Media Impact, the centralized sales and marketing division at Axel Springer. Question for last year, we surely intensified testing the market. We screened a lot of the SSP partners, talked to a lot of demand partners, and also took the decision to invest into our own ad serving technology called Smart, in terms of broadening their functionalities towards SSP functionalities.
Hi, my name is Katharina Meran, and I'm the country manager for Pubmatic. We're based in Silicon Valley, and we've came to Germany in 2011. Last year, 2012, was really exciting for us, not only because we got very much engaged with all the top publishers in Germany. We saw enormous interest in our, again, private marketplace product. And from a global perspective, I think the main change last year was for us mobile. We saw huge growth in that new product, and we were also able to build out all of our functionalities onto the mobile platform and mobile screen.
Hi. My name is Donata Hopfen. I'm the managing director for Build Digital, and I have the honor to have my advertiser with me, which is Christian. So basically our experiences from last year were already told. From a publisher view, for us, we think it's very interesting to try and monitor new things, and real-time advertising is one of these. We do a lot of tests, especially in our cross-border traffics, and we are really keen for this market to grow.
Hi, my name is Arne Wolter, and I'm with Gunnar & Jahr. I'm responsible for the sales side as well as for the products. So I have my sales house with me as well, myself. With regards to what was interesting in the last year was that, of course, we tested as well as most of you. We've seen a big uptake, and especially with regards to mobile, I'm totally with you that I think we are not looking enough into the mobile space, all of us, because this is growing much faster than the desktop space.
So most of you see themselves as premium publishers. This is why are you doing private marketplaces? Has any one of you tested the common marketplaces, and why don't you put your inventory on an open marketplace? Martin, just in brief.
So we see us as a premium publisher, but last year we tested all parts of auctions. So in the open auction we had some inventory, but it was not transparent for all the clients. And we've seen that there is no uplift to the CPM of remnant inventory we have today. So today is not really a good business. And so we launched the private auctions, and we took all the retargeters from our ad serving priority levels into the private auction and want to get the bidding started. And so this is how we've seen that business is growing to get all in the optimization field and into one bucket. And so how we act in the market, we have 4 different categories. So we have inventory categories A, B, C, and D, and we just took the D inventory into the system. And so we see that this remnant inventory category could be taken into the open auction.
I'd ask this question only to the publishers on the panel, so next one would be Stefan. You also tested private marketplaces, you mentioned. Did you also test the open marketplaces, or will you test them in the future, or is this just a test, the private marketplace first and then maybe later on the open marketplace?
Definitely private marketplace. It's not blind inventory is not an objective for premium sales house or publisher sales house for us. It's a matter of quality and control. And yes, to cover the whole an entire perspective and a customer relationship in a private marketplace. So it's led by the premium sales, and we understand real-time advertising with a core belief as a crucial part of an entire company strategy. So it's embedded into this holistic perspective towards our clients about sales and partner relationship. And for us, it's just, yes, another access, an innovative further access, a tech-driven, a data-driven access to the same quality inventories of our publishers.
I see. So just in brief, Christian, Donata, and Arne, do you agree on putting your inventory only on private marketplaces so far?
I think this is what all, you know, what the guys just said. We're all testing. So it's all the premium publishers and sales houses are following probably the same route in terms of making your first experiences, just checking on what is our benchmarks, do we really see the eCPM uplift that we want to see, what is the effort that we have to invest into those testings, and what's the outcome, what's the bottom line at the end of the day, and does it give us the level of transparency, quality control to really make it a viable business and put more, or just open the doors more to give more inventory into those auctions, whether it's a private marketplace or an open marketplace. It just, at the end, it doesn't matter. It's just what gives you the best result, and I think this is really what the whole market is in an evolution of just seeing how this affects your traditional business. Does it really, you know, get you to the results that you're expecting?
So to take the view from the other part of the market, Katharina, Jay, and Thomas, what do you think about are German publishers missing something, losing some kind of chance not to put their inventory on the open marketplaces? Katharina, what do you think?
Yeah, actually, I think they do, to be honest. And just in comment to you, what you just said, Christian, what we observe a lot is that premium publishers especially, they tip their toe in the water. It mainly starts with yield management, and very often the big projects, and it should be a huge strategic project, are led by the yield manager. And not to say that the ad operation side of the whole project isn't important, but there's a much bigger, higher strategic level to it. And I think with an approach where you just test here and test there, some of it gets lost. And what does get lost is the chance to really holistically optimize your inventory across all screens. So mobile, tablet is equally important, as you rightly said. Plus, to actually look at all inventory classes. You've got your directly sold premium inventory that is completely in a different silo right now. You've got your class 2, which is sold through private marketplaces, and then you've got the remnant, the so-called remnant on the open RTB market. If you just test each different category, you always end up in these silos, and you will never manage to holistically optimize and to really add the maximum to your bottom line. And I think that's what we observe. And here I would love to encourage publishers just to be a bit more brave and take the time to think about a really proper go-to-market strategy. You're entering a completely new market. And that's something that from my side, I'm sometimes missing that approach.
You come back to the silo issue later. Jay, what would you recommend German publishers use open marketplaces?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest challenges is exactly this. It's historically, these tests have been run where we'll open inventory, will not be transparent, we'll put a block list of 1,000 advertisers in place, and those advertisers can't bid, or those bids won't be accepted. And as a result, essentially what's happening is that test, from the time in which it was started, was set up to fail. And so when you look at other markets, when you look at other publishers, and actually one of the best things about my job is that I get a chance to go all over the world and talk to some of the best publishers in every market. And I think probably the most advanced are the Dutch. And one of our publishers, De Telegraaf in the Netherlands, has moved to a completely holistic yield managed solution where everything is being run in one auction. Every single impression, whether it's their direct sold, they've built their own bidder with bidder 161, and their direct sold campaigns compete side by side against all other third-party sources of demand. And by bringing in all of the various actors and buyers into one auction, they're able to maximize overall lift to create a holistic yield managed experience, rather than thinking of inventory as here's premium, here's second class, and here's third class inventory. Everything's competing holistically, and the guaranteed sold campaigns help actually buttress and create a second price in that overall auction. So if somebody's willing to pay more for a RTB-based buy because that person happens to be cookie rich, it makes a lot more sense to preempt the guaranteed sold campaign and run a non-guaranteed or an RTB-based buy to that particular user and then repace that campaign out. So when looked at the overall inventory pot in one holistic yield managed experience, that's really where they're able to see and glean the most amount of revenue from it.
Christian? Yeah. Do you think you're missing a chance, or
no? I think I totally agree with you, Katharina and Jay. And coming back to your initial question, Ralf, I think this very basic, what has changed last year, I think this very basic strategic decision has been made by all of us, by all the relevant players in the German market, that we all know that the market, and this has really established within our organizations, the market will move there, and it will move there at the end of the day. It's not a question of if it happens, or it's rather a question when does it happen, and in what extension and dynamic, and how do we structure the road to go there, and rather, open up most or all even of our inventory to 100% to the market. It's just a matter of timing, and just, within our big organizations that we're all representing here, it's also a matter of not only making a strategic decision, but rather defining the road to go there and really keeping all the guys in the same boat and moving into the same direction.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, actually moving to private marketplaces is a run or a sprint, and you got to start to walk first. And one of the things that we see, one of the strategies that publishers take who haven't historically, or premium publishers take when they haven't historically worked with exchanges or haven't worked with ad networks even to move their unsold inventory, is actually placing a $999 bid floor and just listening to all of the demand which is coming in and selectively choosing those advertisers and beginning to piecemeal piecemeal those buys and start to see, hey, this is an advertiser I haven't called on before, or this is a CPM which is really attractive, I should take this buy, or I'm never going to be able to sell to this advertiser because it's non-endemic and I have absolutely no relationship with the buyer. So there's opportunities to take advantage of the programmatic nature of buying.
On the other hand, premium publisher business is still a well-running business. Arne, you are also representative of Online Vermarkterkreis, OVK. Some call it a cartel or oligopoly, whatever, but it's still a well-running business, responsible, managing about 30% of ad impressions in Germany and a much larger amount of turnover because prices are still high. Price lists range into two-digit, zweistellige TKPs still. So do you think this is a still well-running business which will go on for many, many years, or is this under threat?
You mean that the branding business will go on for...
The sales business, according to price lists, according to salespeople dealing with their clients, manually and in person?
Possibly, yes. Because if you look at the branding clients, and we're not talking about we're talking about whatever Gucci or Prada, they will still they want to know, okay, where they're running, and they don't want IIB formats standardized. They want really big homepage takeovers and so on and so forth, and they want integrations. I mean, for example, a couple of our websites, they're making rather 30, 40, 50% of the revenues with integrations and not with standardized ad formats, like Eltern, for example. And there is an interaction with the customer needed, where we need to talk and where we think, okay, what's the creative idea behind it? It's not about performance-based business. And that will probably never go into programmatic buying, which is fine, and I think that's not what you're talking about. The standardized formats, they will definitely move more into the direction of programmatic buying, because we all know that we need to cut our costs sooner or later as well. I mean, it doesn't make any sense that we are sending us faxes, and I'm happy about the processes. I mean, even the print publishing business is much more advanced in terms of programmatic buying than the online business, which is quite funny, I think.
I think there's a large difference between, on the one hand, this shift to programmatic auction-based buying, and on the other hand, just doing the business on a more efficient way. Like there's this initiative of OVK Connect, now that's changed to Argov Connect, maybe we will be talking later about that, which just wants to put in a more efficient way to media buying, but is still done to price lists, according to price lists, and not according to an auction model. So, Martin, would you think that every kind of ad impression will be sold via an auction model in some years, or will there still be price list business?
I think it depends on what the clients want or needs, and I think a similar answer as Arne. We see that many clients, they want consultancy, they want to see concepts, and they want to see how we see their brands and combine or bring their brands into the publisher brands and make them successful. And so you have to talk to the clients. And when you talk to the clients and you show solutions, communication solutions, then you have to find a pricing solution as well. And maybe it's not just ad impression business, it's a package business, which we are doing today as well. And this is similar, 30 to 40% of the business today is working this way.
So I think everyone would agree on then that there's one part of the business which is kind of special advertisings, integrations, and everything non-standard, which will be off auction-based buying and selling for a long time, I guess. And on the other hand, that there are standardized IAB banner formats, which may step by step convert into any kind of auction-based thing sooner or later, let's say. In this terms, I would like to come back on this, on the different models. On the one hand, there's this cascading model. On the other hand, there's this entire business auction-based model. And I'm referring to the cascade not in terms of cascading ad servers, like we had years before, that there was one publisher ad server, and then came in the Google remnant inventory ad server, and the inventory that could not be sold via Google then was taken to affiliate platforms, to, let's say, Zanox or whatever, which were kind of three cascading steps in the technical part. But I'm more referring to the sales part, that at the moment it's like we will put only 20% of our ad impressions into real time just for testing it, or maybe even only 5% or only specific inventory. And first of all, we try to sell, let's say, 20%, 30%, 40%, whatever, via our sales staff, via our exclusive partnership with the sales network. And so this will be the first step of the cascade, mostly selling at CPMs and TKPs, mostly selling zweistellig at 10 euro or 20 euro or whatever, according to a price list. And then comes in a second step. Mostly it's not yet RTB, but it's some kind of blind network or a second network or non-exclusive partnership. And then as a third or fourth step comes in RTB with just a small percentage of ad impressions. So far, is this the way I heard that most of the German premium publishers are working? Do you think this will shift in soon, this year, next year, that premium German publishers will put 100% of their inventory, like the Telegraph example? Katharina, you think they will be shifting?
I think our approach is at Pubmatic that we want to offer publishers a technology where they can translate whatever strategy, company-wide strategy they want to have onto the programmatic market. What that basically means that we have a different approach. I think what Rubicon has done with their client is very radical, and I don't think it's needed, because what we try to do is, we call it unified optimization.
That was their idea.
Where we basically have we have an engine that sits on top of the ad server and is able to pull data from the ad server, from the guaranteed ad server, and compare the campaigns with what is on offer in the programmatic field, right? And that decision is then made. So basically, that doesn't mean that you have to send your salespeople home. You can actually decide via priorities which campaign should be delivered, right? It's technically, of course, a challenge, but we've started developing that, I think, 12 months ago. It's in beta testing already, and I think this is what we should offer publishers, the ability by technology to translate their strategy, rather than saying, we force you to put everything on the platform and your salespeople start queuing.
Jay, right? Rubicon is too radical. You want to answer on that?
Well, what I would say, the approach that the Telegraph has taken is definitely a very bleeding edge approach. Of the 220 premium publishers that we have outside the United States, they're the only ones that have gone to that fully 100% holistically yield managed auction-based approach. And every publisher has completely different requirements and approaches to how they manage it. There is one thing, though, however, that is really important, is that that being able to see every single user, being able to determine what the value of that user might be based upon how rich the cookie set that's on them are, can lead to much higher prices. And so one of our publishers in the UK, a leading e-commerce site, they actually have what we call an RTB sandwich, essentially, whereby they put one RTB tag at the very, very top and allow us to see every single user, and then kick down to their direct sales team if it doesn't meet that price floor that the direct sales team is able to glean. And they're able to move a significant amount of, it's still single digits, but single digits at much higher CPMs than even their direct sales team is able to garner. So there are multiple approaches to how this works, and no one size fits all. A lot of this is the consultation, and that's part of what the team
Maybe.
brings.
There's one thing I want to stress out as well.
Thomas?
What's very important for premium publishers is to see how the technical setup is. So if there are two technical solutions that's running independently, there's always a kind of a discrepancy in terms of click counting. You don't have the same cookie pool, which means that you have to deliver from one technical system to the other. And that's why sometimes premium inventory is not available, because it's just a different technical system. So what we're working on is have a seamless integration of real-time advertising into the premium ad server that allows then the publisher to decide either to sell on a standard CPM buy or to compare on every single level to RTA, but not to have two different technical setups that just makes it more complicated.
Right, this is essentially what dynamic allocation is, right?
Exactly. So this dynamically compare all the CPMs from the standard CPC, CPM, high CPM campaigns to the market, and see if there's somebody who's allowed to bid on those impressions and on which sometimes pre-negotiated CPM levels. So it's not always an auction. It might be always flat negotiated CPM deals.
As everybody is speaking about the Telegraph example from the Netherlands, I'd like to mention we wanted to invite a speaker. We invited a speaker to come from the Telegraph here. Unfortunately, we couldn't get one, but if you want to get more familiar with that example of the Telegraph selling 100% of their inventory in the Netherlands via ad exchanges, I'll post the link on Twitter after this speech later on my account, Ralf Scharnhorst, just my name, Ralf Scharnhorst at Twitter, so you can follow the link to get deeper into that. But coming back to that, the Telegraph example, it's only one example of one publisher putting 100% of its ad impressions into RTB, and this is 2 years ago. So why didn't anybody follow that model? What do you think? Jay, maybe?
Well, I think the Telegraph took the approach because...
No, why did anybody else do? Because this is one example, this is one lighthouse example we are talking all about,
right.
But there has been nobody else following this model.
I think it's pretty easy. If nobody is following now, obviously it's not a 100% successful case. Usually if everybody will talk about it and will say, hey, this is the greatest I've ever seen, and if Telegraph will go out and say, okay, we had an uplift of 100% in turnover, we will probably all think, okay, let's do it as well. Then again, you have to keep in mind that the Dutch market is much more ahead in terms of real-time advertising, in terms of technology anyways, with regards to the German market. You have a completely other field in terms of, okay, who has the reach. In Germany is much more fragmented, and we are, to be quite honest, we are not there. Real-time bidding is nice, and we have experts here on the panel, and they are telling us that everything and everybody can really real-time bid. The truth is that most of the bidders actualize their bid once a day, which is not real-time advertising, guys. This is nearly real-time advertising. So I think we need to cover that and go into that first, so enable ourselves that the bidder, the demand side, is actually able to really bid real-time, and then we can go the other way and make our inventory available on a real-time advertising business. That's, from my perspective, the truth.
I would like to add to that. I think that real-time advertising and the entire automation is really important, but I think we all have a limited resource of people that work in the advertising field, and I think when you look into the premium segments, especially for us as a premium publisher, you can really get a lot of money out of the premium segment if you dedicate your people to work on the premium field, and I think that it's a multifold of what you can get out of a real-time field in today's world. So I think if you look into the allocation of your salespeople, you're better off investing more time into the segments where you can really get a lot of, still investing into the future. But I think in Germany at least, real time so far does not make such a big difference that it makes sense to dedicate all your people only to this field.
So the premium ad sales business is still running too well in Germany with two-digit CPMs like 10 euro, 15 euro, 20 euro? Martin,
it's not about the CPM. It's not about the CPM. It's the average order value, right? When you have a salesperson and that salesperson is working their tail off in order to bring home a 5,000 euro deal, then efficiency matters, right? The reason why the Telegraph has moved into this way is because it's in a market of 15 million people. And the size of the market dictates that the publishers move in this way. They're not the only ones, actually. News Digital Australia is another great client who's rapidly moving in this direction and taking a cue. The Danish publisher network, the Danes are following very similar suit. It's markets where the size of the deal doesn't necessitate and you can't justify the price of the sales team to go and kill that deal. Not to mention that, but the cost of overheads and execution, operationally executing against that deal for a 5,000 euro or pound IO, that's a hard day's work. So we are seeing other publishers begin to move very quickly to this, but I think in the Dutch case in particular, one is the size of the market dictated that, and the other component to it is the buy side was already very sophisticated. These guys already sell 80% of their inventory through RTB. 80% fill rate, not 80% revenue, but 80% fill rate, which is an enormous amount of fill to be coming. So it means the buy side has matured to the point where they're also looking for those same efficiencies because they can't afford to spend the 25,000 euros it takes to plan and execute a media buy.
Let me just I actually agree with that. What we see also at Pubmatic a lot is an increase of programmatic premium, so that you just use the RTB standard to actually sell directly negotiated deals. And that's a segment that is definitely growing, where you already see what the publisher considers operational efficiencies and translates that onto the platform and using that technology. So for us, we see a huge growth potential in that area as well. And coming back to what Donata and Arne said previously, we think, especially in Germany, where you have these big brick-and-mortar publishers, it just will take a while. That's why I think a radical approach, like what we've seen in the Netherlands, is just not in line with the nature of their business. And we just wouldn't advise it. I think there's a consultative approach that a platform or an SSP also needs to take with the publisher.
But honestly, I'm very happy about the...
I like the...
I'm very happy about the process of the German sales houses. They're just taking the right steps. They're investing and they're analyzing. They're not saying, well, I'm just doing it because I think it's good. They're just testing it and see if it really adds value and also doesn't cannibalize their premium sales. And that's how it should be. They should not go and say, well, I think it's going to work. And then they have difficulties internally with their internal sales house. And that's why I think I'm very proud of the development of the German market right now. And it's good to see that all the premium publishers like Interactive Media and Quality Channel also to open it and announce it openly. And this is going to change the market. And we see it already that also the demand side is changing to add more premium demand also into real-time advertising. So I'm proud of this market.
So it will be not the landslide approach, not Jay standing up here and saying, Mr. Wolter, please tear down this wall, but it will be more percentage per percentage every year.
But I think the German market, if you run the Telegraph system and we run it absolutely straight forward, I think we wouldn't make 80% real-time bidding revenue. It will be 5%. So it's not just the brick-and-mortar publishing houses, it's the agencies, the clients, and they have to go step by step.
Sure. I mean, it's that way in every market, right? Without the demand side that's meeting over behind us, without them pushing more of their spend through RTB solutions, whether it's MediaMath or Turn or AppNexus or Invite, unless that budget is already flowing through there, then opening up the inventory, it's a chicken and the egg kind of situation, and the market has to move together, and it moves in step. And I think one of the things which has obviously the size of the average order value in this country is high enough to where it warrants obviously still having salespeople go and kill the deal, and that makes it a bigger hurdle. The other, I think, kind of key hurdle has been historically the lack of usage of third-party ad networks. And so if you look at countries like France and the UK, where the ad network business was actually a very healthy industry, maybe not so much for the publisher, but it certainly was for the rest of the ecosystem, and certainly helped drive up the overall amount of spend which was going through digital. The transition from ad network optimization which is also the legacy of AdMeld and PubMatic, to offering real-time bidding, it was a natural, easy progression. And actually, if you look at other markets, the Australian market is probably the most similar to the German one in that the ad network community and industry didn't really evolve there. But what they are facing is they, like the Dutch, are only 14 million people online. So they have to make those transitions to greater efficiencies in order to be able to operate profitably as an industry. And they're, quite honestly, looking at the amount of liquidity that both Facebook and the Google Ad Exchange are bringing into the equation, and the demand side is beginning to push more and more and more money. I think one of the best quotes I've heard from Brad Bender at Google is that revenue from the top 1,000 advertisers doubled year over year. I would really be interested to know whether any other premium publisher can say exactly the same thing. So I think that's we have to automate for the marketers to continue to invest and spend more, because if out of every 100 euros, 70 euros is going to operational inefficiencies of the media buy, execution, and planning, the marketers just simply aren't going to continue to pour money.
All right, so far we've learned that RTB does not affect the premium sales that much as many thought before, as it is done in other countries. So who else is threatened by RTB, by ad exchange buying? What about blind networks, about non-exclusive sales networks which work on a non-exclusive basis with their publishers? What about affiliate networks as an example? Because it looks much more comfortable, much more easier for a publisher to put his inventory into an ad exchange and sell it on a CPM and not put it to affiliate networks where they can gain only a cost per click or a cost per order, whatever. What do you think? Will there be non-exclusive sales networks, blind networks still on the market in 2 years? What about affiliate marketing networks? Maybe I begin here with a short statement of everybody.
I guess that those ad networks which will move relatively fast, and they enable themselves that they can also that they are able to bid again on impressions on SSPs, then they should also be able to survive. If they stick to their old business, and if they're not able to bid on impressions, then probably they will have a problem. But that's, at least from my perspective, most of them, they will definitely go into that directions. And the big ones, they are already developing their platforms in that direction, and they can even be a demand side as well, because other platforms can buy on their platform again as well, so that there will be still a lot of real-time bidding amongst those.
Just a short statement from everybody. Will there still be blind networks?
I totally agree to what Arne said. I think everyone has to keep moving in this very dynamic business, and if you don't move, then you get overrun at times. But I think all the affiliates know that they have to adapt their business models.
I think this will be an interesting question and interesting to watch. I think that we definitely will see a decrease in that whole business area, because a lot of that business can be taken over by a platform. So I think definitely a consolidation in that market is a necessity, and I'm sure it will actually start this year.
Anybody in the audience from a blind network? Can't find anybody. All right.
Yeah, that's totally agreed. I mean, obviously there will still be enough money out there, but you just, as a player, if you want to stay alive, you have to really make sure that you still gain some value or offer some value to your clients. If you're not able to do that, you just run out of business. It's pretty easy answer.
Yeah, I mean, we work with, I would say, there are 108 individual bidders on the platform from an RTB-based perspective, and then another 600 traditional ad networks would still continue to buy the 6.5 billion impressions a day that are being placed onto the platform. What's interesting is the biggest traditional blind ad networks are migrating to RTB already. So d3con is already spinning heavily through real-time bidding. Adconian is moving to RTB as its buying mechanic. But our general feeling, and I think this should be the feeling for every publisher, is that the more demand that you can get into an auction, the higher your yield is going to be. And this is what we all want, right? We want to maximize the overall yield for you, and in order to be able to do so, you have to have as many pallets as possible in the room to compete for that particular impression each and every impression. And the only way that you maximize revenue is by creating not 3 or 4, 5 or 10 different bidders in the room, but hundreds of potential buyers. And this brings up another really important point, is a lot of the DSPs still today, when a bid request is sent over to the various DSPs, only return one bid, even though there are tens or even hundreds of individual seats behind that particular DSP. So one of the biggest issues that the industry has to migrate towards is for the DSPs to start sending over multiple bids back into the SSPs so that there can be a proper, true, free and fair and open auction where there's a level playing field for everyone to participate. So I think these are things that have to get done. In terms of the death of the ad network, they're not dying. It's the ad network is dead. Long live the ad network. There are new ones that are cropping up. Radium One is a great example. Rocket Fuel is another great example of technology providers using data combined with RTB buying mechanics in order to be able to still perform a role, and those are ad networks.
I think the blind networks will be there, but on the other hand, we strongly believe that real-time advertising, it's not a matter of blind or remnant inventory. So it's more a supplement to a premium sales strategy and to cover all the needs of a customer. So it's not a matter of bringing impressions into an RTB or RTA environment. So it's more a matter of building products to address audiences and yet it's a question of added values for the customer regarding transparency, smart products, and the last but absolutely not least, I think of a holistic perspective of the client relationship. Yeah.
Okay. Just in brief.
So there's one good example of a former ad network that's in a better shape than ever, like AdScale, for example. So it's not that all networks will have difficulties, but those who haven't had the chance to create value, they will suffer.
So we are publisher and sales house, and our mission is to bring the revenue from the advertiser to the publisher. And we don't need a lot of loops, and we don't need 4 or 5 parties in, and everybody takes a 30% margin, so that the publisher will get 5 euro cent CPM. So this is our mission, and similar answer. If the ad networks bring value in terms of a higher eCPM, then they will survive.
We were talking so far. Oh, Thomas, do you want to comment on that?
I want to stress one point from Stefan from Interactive Medias. He mentioned that packaging is very important. So we should not think of real-time bidding or real-time advertising. It's just one display impression, and everybody holds a hand, and then there's a price, and that's it. It's more like creating products, maybe combinations with traditional CPM premium campaigns and real-time or campaigns delivered via real-time advertising that are just differ compared to the other products that are in the market. So if the publisher would add their first-party data into it and make it available to buyers, for example, or if there's just a first look impression that one buyer will have the chance to view the impression before all the others can view them. So it's more like creating really products and shape them in a way that it's easy to sell and easy to buy. And this is where they really added value of real-time advertising, not only in remnant but also in premium. And in the premium sales is when the packaging comes into play, and the premium sales houses, they know how to package and they know how to price, and that's the next step that we'll see.
Exactly, doing different packages is a point I wanted to come back on. Jay, just one short comment?
Just quickly, I mean, I think this is a great point, Thomas. I mean, one of the things that, if you look at open RTB as kind of as a benchmark, private marketplaces deliver 2 to 3 times the value to the publisher. And when first-party publisher data is added to those private marketplaces, the average yield is 3 to 4 times that of a normal private marketplace. So being able, one of the great clients that we have that's doing some very, very interesting work in this area is eBay in the UK, that is essentially packaging up user intent data and creating segments accordingly, whether they be mobile phone intenders, whether they be apparel viewers, and being able to take their first-party publisher data, bundle it with their inventory, and offer that up programmatically through their private marketplaces.
As we were already talking about added value, creating added value and doing different packages, so far we only spoke about publishers selling their inventory via programmatic buying, via ad exchanges. But there are many different ways. There's another way of not selling the ad impressions, which you have only a limited number, but selling your profiles, which you could sell more often. And the next step might be not selling your profiles if you don't want to. I will ask that to everybody from the publishers here. Not selling your profile data, but taking your profile data and buying different ad impressions to generate more reach, to extend campaigns on target groups or in regions where you are sold out, so that you can sell more even if it is not your proper inventory, but an inventory of somebody else, you could do a margin on that. How do you think about that? Maybe Arne, you...
As far as I know, Forbes in the States, they're doing that quite successfully. They are extending their reach on other websites. In the German market, I think we're not there yet, because it's, again, relatively complex for the media buyers actually to understand, okay, where I'm running then. Because if I for example, buy reach on, let's say, Gala, I want to be on Gala, and the user, which can be then found at... okay, is somebody from web.de here? No. Whatever. If you find the same user then on web.de, the question is if really the advertiser wanted to be on web.de. I think for us it's not the proper business, especially not now. That might change over time if the buyer says, okay, yes, I'm willing to pay a little bit more on your site then. But then again, there has to be dealing and wheeling among the publishers. That might be a viable business in the future, but not now.
Donata?
I think in the theory this is a good model, that you know that you have campaigns which are not sold out and you try to arbitrage business or traffic to get more customers onto your site, but I think we are not quite there yet. Being Axel Springer, we have the big advantage that as the telecom, we are a huge company where we could really do profiling, and we do try that, but it is in a very early step, and I think everyone is waiting for the developments in this area.
But I think it's certainly just stressing that certainly a next step that will happen in the future, depending on what kind of data do you collect and how can you package it, how can you enrich not only your own traffic, but also external traffic, package it and sell it to your advertiser. Is he willing, really, in terms of how transparent can you make, where's the campaign running outside of your own portfolio, and if the advertiser is fine with that, because he's only mainly interested in the user, not necessarily in the website or in the portfolio, then there's certainly a business in there.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually one of the things that is fundamental to the French publisher consortium, Laplace Media. So essentially what Laplace does, and this is a premium publisher network made up of over 120 sites from 13 of France's premium publishers who've all come together to essentially move their inventory in a private premium network. But essentially what they're doing is leveraging the data across multiple titles. So if Elle and Marie Claire, both of which are sold out, they can find those female users elsewhere across the network and ensure a very premium environment. But again, this only happens if there is a critical mass. Unless all the premium publishers open up their inventory and create a density of inventory which is available, this doesn't work. In the UK, another one of our publishers, Money Supermarket, is probably the best example of this, and anybody who reads ExchangeWire, there's a great whiteboard session that Kieran did with the folks at Money Supermarket to illustrate exactly what they're doing, taking their intent data, using MediaMath as their DSP to be able to target those same users off-site, and they have created a very, very vibrant publisher trading desk business on the back of that. And I think where it really works is for titles which are have high value, super high value audiences that can generate a nice business from a cost per lead basis, or it's something where it's a very valuable audience based upon a certain endemic audience type, whether it be bond traders or actuaries or whatever it might be. So actually, where I see this area blossoming quite nicely is with the B2B publishers that have very limited amounts of inventory and see sell-through rates nearing 100% on all their titles.
I mean, that's the French example is good. To be quite honest, we've done that in Germany first because we've done it with that audience. 3 publishers are actually sitting on the stage to do exactly that, so that we are collecting data among the 4 and now the 7 publishers to extend our target groups and to be able to fulfill the needs of the fast-moving consumer goods, for example. So actually we do that already, and we have been the blueprint for the French market, by the way. So I think that we've done a pretty good job on that.
Is that inventory available to real-time bidding?
It's not yet available to real-time bidding, but we're of course thinking about it, and I think we have a meeting on Friday, so...
that was teed up on purpose.
The 7 of us, at least Martin is there, so we'll talk about it.
Let me just quickly add to this, because it's an important point. Ad Audience is a very important consortium in the German market. And again, coming back to the idea that technology needs to enable you guys not to only do your own internal publisher strategy, but actually to also be able to translate the strategy of a consortium, right? And that's something where we basically also come in and say we need to have technology where you can set up consortium, can set up network relationships to do the packaging. And like I said earlier, I think the strong rise in programmatic premium, right? So basically what Ad Audience does is exactly that class 2 inventory. We would like to see ourselves as the enabler to also ease the operative process in managing these deals.
I take it with the view of Martin, who said that we want to take out as much out of the value chain as possible. If you add something to the value chain, more than happy to talk.
We need to open up for questions from the audience now, but at least Thomas should mention, because he brought up the idea, right? Thomas, what do you think about it?
Well, the feature is so important that DoubleClick started to integrate, especially those features for publisher, into the DoubleClick Publisher Suite. It's called Audience Extension, so it's possible to do this across different edX accounts. So a consortium can be created within, I would say, 60 minutes, maybe, technically. So there's no need to further integrate all the different ad servers into it, as long as the publisher has an edX account. So the world is running in this direction, and we need to find an easy solution.
Yes, and I can say we have this solution. We created audience channels, make it available on real-time advertising. And I think this is a possibility to add more values for our clients. And if you have, if you have enough reach, if you have a good environment and a technical setup, and I think if you know about your audience, you can create these packages and add values. Yeah.
I see. Well, so this is the moment to open up for questions from the audience. Oder auch auf Deutsch. Wir können gerne jetzt die Gelegenheit nutzen, Fragen zu stellen. Ich blicke mal in die Runde und schnapp mir ein Mikrofon von einem Tisch, wo 2 Mikrofone sind. Ja, dankeschön. Wer hat eine Frage dazu zu dem Thema? Gerne auch auf Englisch, aber kein Problem auf Deutsch.
Kieran's got a question.
Kieran? Back there. Ganz hinten in der Ecke. Ach, da ist schon ein Mikrofon vor Ort. Wunderbar. Aber ja, wir haben sogar Experten für die Mikrofonlogistik hier. Das ist doch wunderbar. Kieran, your question.
Hi, Kieran from ExchangeWare. Great panel. Just a quick question. Just from my observations about the German market, there seems to be an antipathy towards impression level buying from the sales houses. We do not like impression level buying. So, but they like the idea of programmatic trading. So I just want to ask the sales houses on the panel, is the opportunity in programmatic around programmatic guaranteed or programmatic premium? And trading in a programmatic way, but not at the impression level. So that's my question for all 8 of you on the panel, or whoever wants to answer it. Thank you.
Anybody who can answer first? Stefan, maybe?
Thank you. I think the most important thing is to cover all the needs. And actually, currently we are working with a technical setup that is so that you have a standard ad server with a first ad call regarding a guaranteed campaign, and then go to redirect to a platform solution. We think this is not an optimal setup, but you need it, and it's necessary, about forecasting reservations. There are several ideas about programmatic premium in discussion, and I think we have to cover this technical challenge, and if we can do that, and it covers all the need in a holistic perspective, again, I think we appreciate that, this programmatic premium approach.
Anybody else, a different opinion, or does everybody agree?
Well, I want to add one point. Which is very important for the clients that we see. So, real-time advertising and premium, if they sell to the same clients, they sell to the same advertiser, so there need to be a reporting that makes it possible to see the changes and how it's sold and which CPM it's going to be sold. So it's the holistic approach that what Stefan mentioned. It's really, really important that this is right now what hinders the market really to grow faster, but it's going this direction.
Okay, I'm going to have next question from Arndt.
Yeah, just a quick one. And maybe to Jay and to the US representatives. I have the assumption that, especially with all the acronyms and with real-time advertising, real-time bidding, and then programmatic buying, automated trading, that we are not always talking about the same things. Could you give us, from the US perspective, a definition on both expressions, programmatic buying? How do you define that?
That's a great question, Arndt. I mean, there are a lot of acronyms in our business, and we always, everybody wants to create a new one. I think ultimately what it comes down to is it still being traded versus with a manual insertion order, or is it being traded in some kind of programmatic fashion? And that's kind of how I draw the difference in the line. And while, yes, I have an American accent, I've lived in London for 7 years. So this is, I'm as un-American as it gets in many, many ways. And actually spend most of my time all over the world and not in the US. So, but I would temper that with the caveat that ultimately it's about determining who is it that you serve, and whatever vendor you go with, understanding who is it that they at the end of the day are looking to serve. Where are their interests aligned? Are they in the business of supplying both the demand and the supply side, or are they in the interest of one or the other? And making sure that the interests are one and the same with those of your own is critical to finding a successful partner.
I'll have a brief look if any questions emerged from Twitter so far. Well, only one comment from Heike Bedrich. Premium Publisher werden die zukünftigen Gestalter im RTB-Markt sein. So far, any more questions?
Luis Hahnemann from Rocket Internet. I have a question. I heard the sentence that I think Arne said you think we would bid as advertisers only once a day. I didn't get that.
It depends. I mean, I just said that the majority of the platforms out there, the majorities of the ad networks who are actually at this point in time bidding for ad impressions, they're not actualizing their real bid really in real time. I mean, if we're talking about real time, it means that you really bid real time, and if you want to have that impression, you bid real time. And most of them, they're not bidding real time. They rather say, okay, for this kind of impressions, once a day I'm optimizing or I'm changing my price. That's at least my view. Maybe I'm wrong, and all bidders out there are actually really bidding real time, but that's not my information.
Yeah, it depends on the DSP and other DSPs in the room. Turn and Media Math and Invite. It's probably worth you chiming in. But what we do find is, the bidders definitely have different strategies, and they range pretty significantly. And it's also part and parcel with how we then temper who we actually decide to send a bid request to. If we send a bid request to Invite, for the same user in the same session on the same site 3 times and they don't make a bid within the first half hour, we're not going to send them a bid again for that next impression, because the chances of them bidding on that fourth impression are slim to nil. So being able to do that kind of analysis is a critical part to being able to scale RTB, because if you think about, as the number of impressions grows, as the number of bidders grows, the challenge becomes incredibly complex and compounds upon itself and can easily fall over. So being able to throttle and be able to understand who's going to bid on a particular impression based upon how their campaigns pace, how frequently they repace, based upon how they're performing is a critical component.
So, Gelegenheit für eine letzte Frage. Da hinten, der Herr.
Dirk.
Und wie gesagt, das Beispiel Daily Telegraph werde ich nochmal auf Twitter posten, nachher gleich. Ralf Scharnos, sodass Sie das nachverfolgen können. Der hat das Mikrofon, wunderbar, das kann losgehen.
Dirk Fiebig from Amnet Europe. The reason why I think the German market might be like a couple of years behind the rest of Western Europe is because they're not quite willing to take the risk. But RTB is not about gambling, it's about technology and science. And that means you have to have the right specialist operators within your organization. So the question I have is for the Vermarkter, for the publishers and networks, what is your strategy to introduce the cultural change within your organization to successfully operate in the RTB and programmatic buying space?
Interesting question. Who wants to answer first? Stefan, you're smiling. Christian, you've got the microphone. So.
Yeah, you're totally right. It's not only a matter of a strategical decision and technological expertise, it's also you need the people and resources. And I think Donata just rightly said that before. It's also a matter of an organizational shift within your teams to just make sure that the people that are using the technology are able to really fully understand how they can make use of it. And that's certainly part of the evolutionary process that we're all in, and it's probably holding us back, especially in Germany. And it's also a facet of what you just said, Ralph, that the pain is probably not big enough. Our traditional publishing business works well, or at least pretty well, so as long as the pain is not there, that might be different in other markets, or it's obviously different in other markets.
Actually, if you look at the US actually is further behind in the development of private marketplaces because of exactly this point. Because the average sales guy or gal brings home $8 to $10 million a year as their annual quota, and a $100,000 insertion order is easily taken off the table. As a publisher, you don't care about how many times, how many hours, how many line items there are in the I/O in order to be able to traffic that campaign. But RTB has grown in the US for one reason and one reason only. It's just a more efficient way for the direct response, the performance side of the business to grow, not on the premium and what we would consider private marketplaces or the path to programmatic premium or programmatic guaranteed. That market actually is a laggard when it's compared against the UK, when it's compared against France, when it's compared against the Aussies and the Dutch and now the Danish. These markets are all moving towards programmatic premium because they have to, because publishers can see that as their print revenues decline at the rate that they are, digital simply isn't making up the gap. And it's expensive to produce quality editorial journalism. Fact checkers, journalists, bureaus around the world, photographers, these are expensive overheads that digital as it is today simply cannot begin to make up that shortfall as print begins to decline. In the States, it's a totally different animal.
Ja, das denke ich war auch ein sehr schönes, passendes Schlusswort. Vielen Dank an die Teilnehmer im Podium, vielen Dank an die Zuhörer, die auch sich nicht gescheut haben zu stehen die ganze Zeit.